Hey guys, all right, Adam here from Built Beyond 40. All right, let's move on. We had last video talked about intensity variation. Today I want to talk about how intensity variation can fit in terms of your rep schemes. Now, I've talked here primarily about strength, right? So I've kind of talked around about the 4 to 6 rep range if we're talking about strength. Which is definitely something you should put into your workouts if you're wanting to get stronger. Obviously, we want to be working with smaller rep ranges. However, I think for a lot of you as well, you're interested in the aesthetics of lifting weights as well. So we're primarily talking about hypertrophy here, okay? Now, the science tells us that hypertrophy or growing muscle tissue can happen anywhere from 5 to 30 reps. Now, I've been experimenting a little bit with the higher end of the rep range. And I think it's something that we could do as we age because it's worth experimenting with. Because when we think about it, we every time we train at that lower rep range with the heavier weights, we do open ourselves up to injury. And you know, as we get older, injuries are things that we don't want to be carrying. So I've started playing around with the 12 to 15 rep range. And I have to say, I'm really liking it at the moment. The pumps have been fantastic. Really sore the next day. Some real benefits to be said about the higher rep ranges, which I'll talk more at length about through some other videos. And, you know, I'm also going to show you some workouts where I am using the higher rep ranges. Now, how do the higher rep ranges, or how do any rep ranges fit into the cycling of intensity, which is essentially what I discussed last video. All right, so you pick your rep range for whatever cycle you're working. So if it's a cycle that you want to be focusing more on strength, I use the bench press again as an example, just because it's a classic movement. It's one that we, all use, and it's just easy for me to throw some numbers at you if I use bench press. So with bench press, we've got 100 kilos. Let's say we worked 100 kilos and we're working lower rep range now, right? So we're thinking to ourselves, well, what we really want to do here is build up some strength. So I'm going to work the lower rep range. I'm going to work somewhere between, 4 to 6, even 3 to 6 while I'm trying to build strength, fine. So we just program for our strength cycles starting at, say, 60% and using those rep schemes, okay? Even when the weights are lighter down the 60, 70% end of our intensity, we still use the same reps. We don't up the reps just because the intensity has been lowered. This is something that's very important and something I was going to mention to you last video, is that even in those deloaded, less intense workouts, like your 60%, 70%, these still must mirror exactly to the rep what you're doing later on in the more intense rep phases. So if when you reach your 100%, your goal is 100 kilos for, let's say, 5 reps, on the build up to that, you needed to be working at 60% still with 5 reps, because the whole point of the deloads is to make the workouts feel easy and let the body recover. Now, if you automatically say to yourself, well, I'm gonna work maybe 10 reps when I'm in the 60% because the weight's lower, then you're short-circuiting the gaining momentum. You're completely defeating the purpose of those lighter weeks, okay? So if you're using 4 or 5 reps, you start at 60% and you use the 4 or 5 reps all the way to the end at your 100% intense workouts and beyond. Now, how does that work if you decide that you want to focus a little bit more on the hypertrophy, on the muscle building? How does that work? And let's say we're going to use what I've been using at the moment, which is a 12 to 15 rep range. It works exactly the same way. So let's go to bench press. Now, because I'm upping the reps and I'm slowing things down a little bit so I don't have to be so explosive, okay? Because I'm not working on the strength on the bench. But what I'm really doing now is working the range of motion and really feeling the contractions, right? Really, couple of second pause with the contraction, nice lowering of the weight. Now I can't use as much weight, right? So I may have to go from 100 kilos and drop my weight down to like 60 on the bench press or 70, somewhere around there, and really start to nice controlled movement, 12 to 15 reps. And I build it up the same way through the cycle. So at 60%, you know, I'm using 12 to 15 reps. I hit 100%, 12 to 15 reps, and I continue to try and use that rep range as I either add reps, maybe, you know, 13, 14, 15, 16, or add a little bit of iron. So depending on what you want to do, you can focus on different rep ranges, but you fit them into the cycle. So the intensity variation is the framework that you fit your workouts into, okay? They will work as the blueprint for what it is that you're doing. So regardless of whether you're working strength or you're working hypertrophy, your rep ranges, whatever they may be, must stay consistent through the entire cycle. So when it's really easy, you know, you still stay with the reps, and then you build up the weight as you get through 70, 80, 90%, 100%. You stay with the reps. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit more in the next video about the different, you know, the hypertrophy versus the strength based rep ranges, and I'll also talk a little bit more about sets as well when it comes to the two rep ranges, just in terms of volume. Now we know we need to bring our volume down. The question is, when you have more reps in your sets, your volume is automatically, you know, going up. So you need to compensate a little bit for the sets as well. But like I said, we'll get to that. For now, have a think about what it is in your next cycle that you want to work. Are you working more strength? Are you working in that sort of 3 to 6 rep range, or are you going to be working more hypertrophy, more building of the muscle, which will be somewhere around, you know, I like to say anywhere from sort of 10 to 15 reps. And when you get to lower body stuff like squats and leg presses, hack squats, you may even want to think about moving up into the 15, 20 rep range as well. But that's the subject of another video. Okay guys, until I see you again, be good.